Thanks for being here on a Friday afternoon. I know there are lots of good sessions that are competing for your time, so I appreciate you being here. Okay. Just a minute. Okay. So I'm Anand. I work at QBD42 as a technical architect, and I have a 9 years plus experience with Drupal. We have built two tools. One is Figma to design system and Twig to SDC. Both are built for solving the common problem with two different approaches. So first one is a Figma to design system. So I want to stress on a word system over here and not just a component, because you will see a lot of posts nowadays where you are just giving a Figma URL and getting a component out of it in whichever the programming language that you require. But with this Figma to design system, what we are building is an entire design system inside your Drupal. That means the tokens, the design tokens, are extracted and locked into your CSS architecture. And components are built, components are governed, and you get a complete SDC component library. And advantage of this is your Figma file becomes a single source of truth, and your Drupal stays in sync with it. And another approach is Twig to SDC. Now, Twig to SDC is more of like you already have your Twig-based component theme in your project, and now you want to adopt to single directory components. That's where Twig to SDC comes into the play. So consider Twig to SDC as a helpful assistant which does the heavy lifting for you, and you come into the picture to make the fine-tuned details wherever needed. So let's take a quick example for the Twig to SDC. For example, let's say you want to convert your current Twig component to a single directory component. First of all, you'll have to open a Twig file, analyze all the variables, what needs to be a prop, what needs to be a canvas-related prop specifically, because canvas have some special props or types when it comes to the image and all. So you have to analyze all of them, and then you decide, you write a component.yaml file, and respected to that, you make changes in your Twig file again. Now, this is just for one component. Now, when you have a bigger design system, multiply that effort by 50. This is not a complex work, but when it comes to the value, it takes time. And that's where Twig to SDC come into the play. For today's session, I'll be focusing more on a Figma to design system, because covering both of them is not possible in a single session. So after this session, if anyone interested into looking into the demo of the Twig to SDC or talk more about it, happy to talk outside the session room or in a contribution area. Yeah. So think about the last time your team started a new project using a Figma design system. Design team hands over a well-structured, mature design file to a developer team. Now, the design also has the tokens defined into them. So your color primitives, typing, typography scale, spacing scale, elevations, etc. And components are built with variation, states, and proper auto layout. That's all what we need while we are building the design system inside a Drupal. Now, as a developer, it's our job to convert that design system into a living design system inside your Drupal project. Okay. That means we have to go extract every token that has been defined inside your Figma file, make it as a CSS variable. If there are styles, you have to bring down them, convert them to a proper variables, then you make a composite classes out of it. And you need to set up a storybook where you will render these components outside Drupal and then write a documentation about it. So all of things are more like for each component you follow the same thing. So the question over here is how much of this part of this particular process is architecture related, where your developer needs to go in and take a real decision what should be the component structure or what should be the responsiveness I need to take care of, or what are the accessibility patterns that I need to follow. And also think about from perspective how much this is just a transcription. Because mapping a CSS variable from your, let's say, for example, mapping a color token from your Figma file to CSS variable, taking a spacing value from your Figma to your code. And with respect to SDC, you are writing the same boilerplate YAML for a 15th component, which that follows the previous 14 components that you are writing, already writing the YAML for. So this particular process of transcription, that's what this Figma to design system workflow eliminates. So it reads the data from the design system and uses inside your project directly. So design to developer handoff errors are also minimized along the way. So who this tool built for? The teams that operate with a mature design system and wants to scale their development without losing consistency across their design system. So that brings in front-end engineer teams who are working with design system, Drupal teams who wants to build the single directory components, because when you give that Figma URL to this particular workflow, it will give you as an output as a single directory component. Then design system teams, because there are lots of contributed themes available in our ecosystem. So themes that are built on design system principle can leverage this tool. And obviously the last one is organizations who wants to scale, who wants to accelerate their development, front-end development processes with using the AI. So the goal here is to let your developers move faster while making sure that the quality, governance, and architecture is intact. Now, this Figma to SDC has two main skills. So it's based on a Claude skills and rules to set up a complete boundary for it, to follow the rules and everything. So first one is token extraction skill. So what it does is, as a developer, I go into the Figma, copy a component link or a UI primitives links, for example, colors, typography. I just copy that link for that frame, give it to the agent. Agent takes care of connecting with Figma server and pull via an MCP server and pulls that data. Once it pulls that data, it starts processing it and extracts all these variables from it. And then, rather than writing that code directly, it generates a complete specification document. So this document is more of like all the Figma design system variables that has been written into your Figma design file, those are transcripted via AI in here. And also, if your Figma, and it's not just about transcripting. This tool, this agent also takes care of notifying if there are any deviations or any best practices are not being followed inside your design system itself. For an example, you are following 100, 200, 300 for your colors numbering, and you miss out on your designer miss out on in between like a 400, for example, and it's keep going on 500, 600 like. So this tool, while it generates this specification document, it will point out that the 400 is missed, and is that intentional? You should check with your designer once. So we'll take a look at this in a demo, but just to go before a demo, let's have a walkthrough of how it works first. And then the human review step comes into the play. So this is not some autonomous code system that goes and write everything when you provide something. the generated document will be reviewed by developer, so that it can take an action, and whenever the LLM is confused, it will ask that questions in that generated doc, so that once you give that approval, your doc specification will be 100% right because your developer has reviewed it. And then once the approval is provided, the agent will go down and write the complete variables file for you. So let's take a look at demo. I hope it's visible now. Is it visible? Okay. So we have a custom theme over here, SpaceDS, which is also set up by an agent. So this is not manually set up. Now you can see that we have a Figma file with color primitives, then spacing, typography, and all. So the developer is going in and just copying the links to it and adding it to the Claude code to an agent. So there are a bunch of them. So it will go to grids, typography, shadows. Yeah. Right. I think that's the last. Yeah. And now the developer goes in, just typing the skill name, and it will just ask an agent to extract variables, tokens, and styles from the given below URLs. Now, in the background, agent is going to the Figma, using the Figma MCP server and extracting all those variables in it. And once they are extracted, so we can see that it's taking the typography, it's fetching typography variables and all. Once it's have all of this data available to it, it will churn those data and write that spec document. And once we see that spec document now, then it will come to realize how much important it is to write that spec document for an agent. Okay, yeah. So now the agent has written a complete design token spec documentation, and the workflow has stopped here for an explicit user workflow approval. So unless and until this is not approved by an developer, it will not go ahead. And let's take a look at on the right side of the screen where the design token specification are mentioned. You can see that you can see the note sections everywhere. That's where the LLM is either confused or your design system is not following the best practices. It also shows the colors. Currently it's showing the hex code. You have typography scale, heading, body, text, typography, spacing, shadows, and everything that has been defined into your Figma file. If you have semantic mappings done inside your Figma file, those will also be displayed over here. And this is the most important section, which is decision and open questions. When LLMs or agents churn this kind of huge data, they tend to hallucinate. So rather than let them hallucinate, they ask question wherever they are confused. So multiple questions being asked by an agent wherever the confidence is low, and once they have and they will also provide you a approach they are thinking or assumption they are making over there. And if you are okay with assumption, you don't have to comment anything there. But if you are not good with the assumption, you just need to select the other and type in into that box what you want to be changed in that document. And once you provide that, if you provided some feedback, it will make those changes to the document. If you haven't made any change to the document, it will just go ahead on approval and write down a complete CSS variables file for you. You can see here that all of the variables are there. So this Figma design system, Figma file also had a composite classes defined for typography. But you can see that, first of all, writing those classes before, it defined those variables. And now if you go down the file, you'll see that those composite classes has been defined by an agent over here after this one. Yeah, the text display. All these are defined as a text styles inside your Figma design system. So now all of your base setup of your Figma, of your design system is done in just one skill. when you wanted to start. So more or like the process that used to take a day could be done into 15 to 30 minutes, right? So, and any front-end developer, once we set up our design system, we go and we write stories about it, right? Because we want to have that visualization layer for us to see what tokens all we have. Now, agent goes down and goes ahead and write down those stories for you. If that storybook failed, it will go again, it will fix that error until that storybook build is successful. And you have a complete your color palette, you have shadows, you have typography, everything with documentation inside your storybook. Right. So from just a Figma design system, you are able to set up your design system, base design system within few minutes, which would have taken a lot of time to you. And this happens because we have a lot of rules that are setting up a boundary around it. There are mentions of things like how this data needs to be interpreted, which is provided by Figma. Okay. And then we have a component generation scale. Now, if you look at this complete flow, you will feel like there is nothing different than what a front-end developer does while building this component. So just take an example, like if you want to build a card component, we go to a Figma file, we take a look at Figma, we click on everything, and check what are the properties are there available. So that's what the phase structured data is. Once we have that, when we look at our Figma file card component, in a memory, we take a screenshot of it, right? We know how it looks like while developing. So that's what the agent does. It goes and takes your screenshot of your component. Now, once we look at the component, we see that the card has an image, then the title, then description, and then tags. That's an anatomy of your component. So agent goes there, analyzes what's the anatomy of this component. If there are very variations available, it will take care of those also. So it's just not that you are providing this one Figma URL of a component. If there are variations, it will take care of implementing variations of a component as a single component and not creating them as a different ones, which happens with different tools right now, if you give them. And then, as we are talking about design system and not just a Figma to component, it's very crucial to resolve those dependencies because your card can have a tag component inside it. So tag needs to be built separately as an atom level component and not as an inline component to your organism or molecule component itself. So agent goes in, agent looks at the Figma data structure, it looks at your screenshot that it has taken and decides what are the dependencies of this particular component are available there. And then it's write a specification about it. So the same thing that it's done for our token spec file, it will go ahead and create a complete documentation file around it. What are all the variants are available? What are the all tokens that can be reused inside one? If by mistake, designer has introduced any new value inside your design system, you can catch that all inside before implementation of itself, which can be missed in manual development today. And at the end, once all of this done, before presenting it to the developer, the agent goes back and verifies completely whatever that spec documentation has. Is it true or is it hallucinated? If it's not hallucinated, it will present it to the user. Or if it's hallucinated, then this step will correct those things inside the documentation itself. And once the developer provides the approval, it goes ahead and generates your component.yaml file, tailwind files, and also a documentation for you with the storybook stories in it. And once the storybook is written, once the stories are there, agent can go to those stories, take a screenshot of them. So now agent has a Figma screenshot, and agent also has a storybook, what is currently built component screenshot. And then it matches them, which is a visual QA in our normal workflow, what dev testing we do today. So that visual QA happens over here. If everything looks good, it will proceed. If not, this will be treated, whatever the issues are tracked here, those will be treated as a feedback, and then it will again provided to the agent. Agent will work on those things, it will fix them, and then only it will go to the next step, which is pixel perfection. Because we have a Figma data available, we can do our things pixel perfection. Because Figma provides you, if you use Figma in the right way, you get a complete structured output for your components. And then the playwright test cases are written to match every color, every font size, every line height. An agent writes those playwright test cases for you. So once the test cases are there, your agent opens up a playwright browser, takes the computed styles from it, and compare with the actual Figma data. So you can be sure that if you are mentioned a 10 pixel padding in your Figma design system, it will be a 10 pixel over here. So that's how the complete component generation for workflow works. The feedback loop here is a mainly important part, because that's how the agent gets a feedback if something is wrong or not in there. So let's take a look at demo of component generation scale. So this is the component that we are going to make with the help of agent. And this is a hero banner for a space design system that we have. Okay. I'll just play this one. So on the left, we have already our tokens and everything. On the left side, you can see them. And now we are just providing a desktop and the mobile image, mobile Figma URLs for this particular component. And we are telling the agent to build the component as a SDC component from Figma. The same thing happens. It goes to the Figma via MCP server, fetches all of that data, downloads the images, which you can see right now. And now the agent is checking your CSS variables file. So it wants to check that how many things, how many existing variables that you have defined matches with this particular given component. And on the screen, you can see right now that it pops up a pop-up is there, which is asking developer that there are button is a button icon as a button icon and input field are dependencies of this component, which does not exist inside your design system right now. If they exist, it would have reused them. But as they doesn't exist, it's asking you if you want to create a new component out of this, and which is recommended. If you don't want to create them, do you want to leave them right now or create a placeholder for now? Or do you want to build these subcomponents as an inline to this particular component itself? So that's how it's not just a component generation, it's a design system. So it's able to track the subcomponents, build them separately, and then again reuse inside your main component. So the developer go ahead with building this as a separate components right now. In this particular step also, while building the dependencies out, it asks for a human in the loop, same things, the documentation and everything. But to save some time for this demo, I have disabled that human in the loop. So it will go ahead and build those components directly right now without asking any questions. Yeah. Yep. So you can see that right now it's building it's writing the icon.component.yaml file, button.component.yaml file. So all of that SDC schema, component.schema that you have to write by manually, it's all written by an agent over here. And all of the variables, all of the properties are enums, that are options available for variants and all, those are covered. I just want to take a step back over here. If you can see on the screen, you won't find any of the arbitrary values that are being used inside this component, because in design system, we reuse variables that are already present. All of the properties in here are being referred by what's defined into your CSS variables file. So like we used to do in early days of LLMs, we go to the ChatGPT, we provide all the screenshot, build me these components, and we copy paste back. So that doesn't provide you all of the variables that you already have that's being included inside. So you don't have to move back and forth over here. And this Twig also following all the best practices of Twig rules, because we defined those rules before. So you can see that it's using the CVA for managing the variants and all, because it's all written as rules, so to set that boundary for an agent to work with. And it will also add for respective spec documentations for everything, and then it will spec documentation for everything, and it will write the test cases for them also. Now, all of the dependencies has been built. Now, it's created a documentation for our main component that we are building, which is a hero banner. And you can see that it provides you variant matrix. It talks about the layout, how it's going to handle responsiveness, what tokens will be used, what tokens are not available. Everything will be written over here. And the last part is where your LLM has a low confidence. Those will be asked down here. So in this particular one, it asks like pagination dots from Figma desktop. Sorry, I can't read there. Figma desktop omitted as a decorative and non-essential. Confirm it's needed. And I just mentioned it to an agent that I need that part. It's not non-negotiable that you cannot build without it. You cannot build the component without it. So now it goes and it updates your documentation file and start building your component. On right side, you can see that it started building, and you have the component YAML schema for your hero banner over here. Okay. And it's writing a Twig file for you. And once it's done, it starts running the visual QA. So before running a visual QA, it will build the storybook for you, story for it. So we are using a storybook add-on SDC plugin over here. So it takes care of writing your schema and the stories inside that YAML file itself. You can see that all of the dependencies are built there by default. And then we have this is the Twig file for the hero banner that agent has written here. So everywhere you can see that it's reusing all of the variables. Nothing has been introduced as a new variable or arbitrary values inside your Twig file. And then at the end, it will start writing the helper the Twig test, playwright test cases for everything. But on the screen, I just wanted to highlight this one. When the visual QA is done and completed, it provides you a complete summary out of it. That layout structure looks right, typography is looking right. Whatever the issues related to the ghost and everything, warnings are there, those has been highlighted by an agent. So you are always in control, like what agents are doing. You always have a feedback from an agent. If agent does something wrong, you always have a way in the human in the loop to keep things in a check. Okay. And these are the playwright test cases it writes. So if you can check, like it's taking the different viewports into the consideration, shadows, other properties. Every single property gets covered in a test cases. And one of the test cases failed over here, so it's making sure that that test case get passed. So it will make the relevant changes to the code, and again it will try to execute the test cases and see if they get passed. And at the end, you get a complete component like this. Okay. So me being a developer, it failed, so I'm checking this one. So image is going to the 404 URL. That's why it's not rendering the background image right now in your storybook. But this is something I tried like 4 times, and I took a worst case output of this component. So in a base case scenario, you are getting a 100% complete output as 100 rather than seeing 100, 95% or 90% similar output. But in a worst case, this is what you get that you saw on the last storybook. And as it's a SDC compatible, you can just pull it onto the canvas, you add a background image to it, and you have a component ready. So this is what we wanted to build at the starting. So you have a complete component ready within 30 to 40 minutes of an agent working on it. And it also takes care of responsive itself. Okay. There is also a video about generation with variations where your card has a 3-4 variations, but we are not going over this right now because we have less time and I have more slides to cover. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Everything looks good in the demo. The AI demos are like, if you show a video, people think that it doesn't work, or it's not 100% works, that's why you have a video. But it takes a lot of time to run these agents right now, and the session time is limited. So that's why I wanted to present beyond the demo over here. So this is actually something we built at QED42, and we wanted to roll this out to teams to use on a projects. And how do you roll out this to teams right now? Because it's a concern that how would you get a feedback from a people? What if components are not working? Which components are not working? So these are the main few questions are there, right? If all of them, which components need the most manual correction? Because you have a human in the loop, you are providing input. So everything needs to be tracked down. How do you know tool is really helping you? Where the tool needs correction, everything. So if you can't measure anything, you can't prove it that it's working. And that's where we built a complete telemetry. So the agent is just not working, but it also has a complete telemetry with it. So everything that agent does, agent sends that data to this dashboard. We didn't want it to involve any other process for a developer to enter and provide us a data, because taking feedback from 50 developers is consuming their 50 hours of 1 hour of time. It's equals to 50 hours. We didn't want it to do that. We want to optimize our processes. So that's where this agent, whatever it does, it logs everything and sends it to the Jira. Now, at the screen, you can see that there is a phase-wise analysis where this agent particularly taking more time, on which components it's taking more time, how much agent spend time in a particular phases. And that's how you can see that you can decide which particular phase as a developer I need to optimize, where are the issues are. And then there is a human in the loop checkpoints. Which checkpoint developer are facing most issue at? What issues are they facing? What are they correcting in the tool? Everything is there. So that as a developer, I can go in, I can look at this data, and I can improve that tool, so that I don't have to go to everyone to ask like, what's the feedback, how you are finding out the tool and everything. Everything gets captured inside this telemetry itself. All of this data is not correct, it's a dummy data. So those gains that you are seeing, those are not right. I'll showcase the exact gains. And at the feedback, you can see here that whatever the visual QA agent is doing, it's also providing you as a feedback that visual QA had to fix the layout for this particular component. Visual QA has to make sure that these 3 things were failing. All of these get logged, so that next time I try to make it optimize, I can take this data into the consideration. Because without data, you cannot optimize your AI app. So this is the actual data that you are seeing from one of the project that we are using this tool on. So you can see that at the starting, there was the usage and the efficiencies were low with using tool, because everyone was getting used to this tool, how to use it, how to review these documents and everything. But over the period of time, you can see that the gains are getting increased and increased. So this is something not just a demo right now that we are showcasing, but something that we are using onto our projects and trying to see where the tools is failing and getting those learnings back from it and building on top of it currently. So I think that's all from the demo perspective. If you have any questions related to this particular session, happy to help answer.
Thank you for the demo. Hello. Thank you for the demonstration. So I just have a question relating to Figma. Okay, so I mean, so the starting point is from a Figma that coming from a design system, so that the agent can understand what all the elements inside the Figma page. But if I had, for example, a client that his Figma is, I mean, it's not using a design system, it's a mess.
Yeah.
Yeah, is the agent is efficient to retrieve elements and create the SDC component properly, or?
No. So if you are not following the Figma design system best practices, this tool is not yet ready for that. It will work, it will create few things, but they won't be a perfect ones. And we haven't tried that on. So currently we are setting up a milestone. There we are looking at the converting from the Figma design system itself. But we are looking at solving other problems also, but that's not on the current milestone that we have. So to answer that question, it requires a Figma design system.
Thank you.
Hi, thanks for the presentation. I have a question regarding accessibility. If it's like built within the skill, and if it can catch early accessibility issues. For example, if there is a hover state of a button or a font size issue, if this is something that the test can catch and fix it, or ask the human in the loop. And then I have another question.
Yeah. So it does. So currently, if you see any of the component, agent takes care accessibility into the consideration and built a AA standard accessibility rules. And every document that we have seen into this video, if you have looked into it, there is a section at the end which talks about how this component should be used in another component. And this README document also consists of what accessibility things needs to be taken into the consideration while this component is being reused. So the tool does take care of accessibility right now.
Okay, and the fix, I guess it's in the Figma now. It's not up to the agent or the styling to fix this. So if there is, for example, a contrast issue, contrast color issue, or a font size issue, then this should be fixed in the Figma, and then reapply the whole logic with skill in the Cloud code.
Right. I'm glad that you asked that question, because the contrast issues and normal accessibility issues, those are directly highlighted at the first specification document it creates. So even before creating that component, it highlights you that check with your designer if this is intentional or not.
Okay, now question number 2.
Yeah, sure.
So in the example you showed, I noticed that all the components only had like the YAML component file and the Twig file. The rest of the CSS or the JS functionality, is it like pre-compiled into a whole file and they are not using SCSS per component, or is this like a specific build you are using in your company?
Yeah, so the current component that we built is using a Tailwind CSS. So all of the classes in a Twig, they are residing inside your Twig file itself. And if you run the npm run build command, which agent does take care of it, so it compiles down to the CSS, that's why the styling gets applied. But if you want to use any other CSS frameworks or SCSS or CSS, plain CSS, you just need to make few changes to the agent, and it will be able to do that.
Okay, so it's the same concept with JS, right? So
Yeah. So currently, currently we are not looking at we are not working with multiple animations where the JS is involved right now, but that's the current work we are doing upon, which is in progress to support the animations right now. But currently we haven't take care of writing the JS in a best optimal possible way.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I mean, configuring the agent. Sorry, thank you. What about configuring the agent to work with Bootstrap or Tailwind or other CSS? Is there a specific configuration we need to set up?
Yeah, so all of this writing down of Twig code, SCSS or the Tailwind code or component YAML schema, these are handled and restricted by the Claude rules. Claude provides you rules, right?
Yep.
So those rules and the best practices has been written for an agent so that it works within the boundary. Because if you let your agent write a component.yaml file without those rules, you will find out that there are multiple errors that will come before you render that into the canvas itself. So that's the environment or the boundary that agent has where it needs to work upon. And that's the constructed area is there. And that's why everything that it builds follows the same pattern. That's why you will have the consistency across your code also.
Thank you.
Are your teams limited to using Claude for this, or can you change your whatever coding assistant for this?
Yeah.
Is this like configurable for all those?
Currently, we are using the Claude, but if you have seen the Nebula or other skills that are now they are portable to each of these IDEs. So you write once and you can choose the framework which IDE you want to use, and accordingly the skills gets manipulated. So that could be implemented and make them portable right now. But currently we are using the Claude.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Just a note, if anyone wants to talk about Twig to SDC, happy to showcase those demos also, or in a contribution room, I'll be available. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, sure. I think we can, I think there will be a next session over here.